Did you guys know that I've been to over 20 tech conferences? I've even been fortunate enough to give presentations and talks at some of them. But the question is, where should I go next? What's up, good people? My name is Stacy, and I love tech conferences. It's always an awesome time for me to kind of release, reset, and fall back in love with why I'm a technologist in the first place. Sometimes you can get bogged down with the day-to-day, the humdrum, the pressure, the pace, or the boredom, depending on where you work. But I love going to tech conferences, and I thought there might be some folks who really haven't had an opportunity to go to a lot of tech conferences, or really maybe don't have an idea of how to approach it. So this will be a quick little video. I just want to throw a few things together to share about, my experiences with going to conferences. I thought I would take a few minutes to share some of my kind of best practices and tips for being a conference attendee. I'm going to cover a little bit about budget, topic, what kind of opportunities that it might present, destination, your personal objectives, as well as the reputation of the conference. Now, I haven't met a tech conference I didn't like yet. And some conferences I've been to multiple times, which will give you an idea of how much I did like them. And honestly, you can't beat the swag. I'm a sucker for a free t-shirt, although I'll share a little bit about that as well. I look forward to nerding out with folks that are interested in some of the same things that I'm interested in, as well as, being a little bit vulnerable at times. And it's also a good opportunity to show off a little bit. It's all packed into 2 to 7 days, depending on the conference, but boy, is it glorious. I love it, and I try to go every year, at least to one. So without further ado, like I said, I'd like to share some of my lessons learned, some of my best practices, some of my ideas for picking a good one and preparing to get the most out of it. So, that budget. My first tech conference was a conference called MobiDevDay, and I drugged my sister along with me because I really didn't know what to expect. A friend had suggested that I start checking out tech conferences because I wasn't really happy with my career at the time. I felt slightly stalled, and he was putting me down on some game about networking and going to see what's out there and what are other people really kind of doing. Like I mentioned, you can get kind of siloed off just in the day-to-day of what you do. And a lot of times going to a tech conference will give you an opportunity to, again, kind of see what's cutting edge, sometimes even bleeding edge. See that some folks are having some of the same troubles and challenges that you are. So MobiDevDay was a good option for me because, like I mentioned, budget. It was a local conference, local to Detroit, which is where I'm at. And it was not really flashy or anything, but it had really good, solid people there. The opportunities for learning were great, and the opportunity for networking were great. I actually ended up meeting some folks who ultimately we ended up working on the same team at the same company. Had no clue, no idea at the time that was the case, but they had good things to say about the company. And so, I was really happy that I got to meet them and made it such an easier decision later to say yes. But your budget may not come only from your wallet. You may have a budget at your employer that covers some or all of any kind of conference opportunities. And depending on what capacity you're going to a conference, the conference may even cover some of that. So take all of that into consideration. But particularly if you're paying for everything out of pocket, you want to keep in mind the money for hotel, travel, not just to and from whatever the city might be, but also getting around in the city. You also may want to take into consideration hotel. You have to do kind of that cost benefit analysis, whether staying close to the event is worth the usual higher prices, or whether you want to go with a more budget friendly option, but then have to be concerned with getting back and forth to the event every day. Your budget obviously also includes the registration fees, so make sure that you try to register as early as you can, because most conferences will offer an early bird discount. They want to be able to plan and coordinate based on the number of people that they have as well. Nobody wants to plan for 50 and end up with 300. So early bird is always a good way to save a few bucks. You can also look at group discounts, particularly if you're active in a community or you have some other like-minded folks. You guys may be able to get a reduced rate. Also, if you're a student, you may be able to get discounted rates as well, or have some other types of affiliation. So look into all those things when it comes to budget. The next thing I'm going to bring up is topic. So what are you interested in going to a conference about? And that reminds me of the Interop ITX conference that I started going to. I was pretty desperately looking for leadership conferences at the time. I was not a leader, and I was very interested in becoming one. And I was very fortunate that my employer was willing to send me to conferences. And I saw the agenda, and it had a lot of leadership focused material, sessions, information, speakers, and folks who had a lot of similar looking backgrounds to my own. And so I opted to go for that conference. It turned out to be a really good choice for me, and I went back to that conference probably the next 2 or 3 years in a row. I was starting to get to know the organizers even, so that was really awesome. Of course, then the pandemic hit, so we won't get into how that went, but I made some amazing relationships through that conference. So think about the topic, right? Is it something that you're aspiring to learn, or is it something that is particular to your particular current work or job? I was also able to go to a Symphony Live conference in New York City, which was tremendous. It was my second time to the city, but the first time to really be able to do it for an extended period of time. Previously, I had only just come with my sister. We actually were visiting New Jersey and decided to hop a train to New York to check out some inspiration and possible business ideas for something that we were working on at the time. I can tell you tons of stories about being in New York, everything from seeing Angela Lansbury in a theater district to almost missing my flight back home and the horrible turbulence that it took for me to get there in the first place. So you can check out I got some blog posts out on mynameisstacy.com if you want to check that out. That talks a lot about a lot of my conference experiences. It's hard sometimes not to let the topic or the destination make the decision for you. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to sunny Miami for a conference, for instance? Or maybe you might have fun in Vegas if that's your cup of tea. But don't let that be the only driving force. Although it is nice to get out to see different places. One of my favorite conferences was at Cold Stock, which was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was a great time, great people, great tech community. I did, however, fall in love with Austin, Texas a little bit. It's not a place I thought that I would be so excited to go, but I went down for OzCon some years ago, and man, it just kind of blew me away. And so when I had the opportunity to go back for Afrotech a few years ago, I guess at this point maybe it was 2 years ago, I got to go to Afrotech in person. Man, it was tremendous. It was so amazing. And the city was just as welcoming and entertaining. I love live music. It was just a great vibe. It was a great scene. I really did enjoy myself. I would totally consider going to Austin for vacation. I would love for my husband and I to be able to spend some non-work related or non-conference related time down there as well. So if you want me to come do a talk or something down in Austin, just let me know. If you pay for my room and board, I'll get there. I'm getting down to my last couple of things that I want to talk about. And one is pretty important, is it's objective, which is a little bit different than theme. The theme may relate to your objective, but is your objective to learn the next big thing in tech? Or is your objective to network for your next professional opportunity? Is your objective to expose your brand to other companies? Are you there to give a presentation? Or there's a lot of different reasons to go. So make sure you think about that and factor that into your decision. Lately, I've been going to conferences through my job to help with recruiting efforts, as well as to evaluate conferences and whether or not they are worth the company's investment to send team members to. Your objective, the thing that you're going to the conference to accomplish, really should drive everything from what sessions you attend to how you dress and how you introduce yourself. Over on my Substack, it's called Between the Lines. I do have a kind of a branding Kickstarter that you might find useful if you're not really comfortable or have that introduction piece down yet, especially if you're looking for your next opportunity. And the final thing I kind of want to get into is the reputation of the conference. Some conferences look better on paper than others. So you really kind of want to know what the community thinks of it. Although sometimes it really is still just up to you. There was one conference that I absolutely loved. It was called Future Insights Live. It's unfortunately defunct now. So maybe the larger crowd was on to something that I wasn't, but I thought it was a great conference. It was good for me where I was in my engineering technical growth. I got so much out of it. I still have some of the notes. That could be because I'm a pack rat, but that's a whole nother video. But feel free to enjoy what you enjoy and have the objectives that you have. And depending on the situation, nobody really has to know what your agenda is when you go to a conference. And that's one of the reasons I like to go. Like I said, I can really be vulnerable. I can really release and to some degree be whoever I want to be, because I don't know those folks. And I may never see them again. But for those that I continue to get to see, I love it. Like I said, I've made some good connections and friends. I picked up a mentor who really helped me understand my own self-worth and really how to advocate for myself. There's other people who regularly speak, and I'm always happy to see when we're on program together. And there's nothing like having somebody to meet up with at the conference, because the conference is during the day, and the evenings you're either going to sit in a hotel room or maybe get to do some sightseeing or something. But I am much more community oriented, so I'm looking for some people to spend some time with, grab some dinner and things like that. And it's really awesome when you feel like you're catching up with an old friend, as well as getting to meet new people. The other thing about the reputation of a conference is that, again, tied in with your objective or your goal, those type of opportunities, is every company can't go to every conference. So even though the conference agenda may be in line with where you want to be, if it's not in line with what the company that you would like to work for is lined up with, you may be disappointed, because conferences can be expensive. That's one thing I didn't mention in the budget. I told you what to look out for, but the average conference can easily run you $2,500 to $5,000 or up. When I went to New York, it was sort of last minute. I think my plane ticket itself was well over $1,000, and that had to be almost 10 years ago that I went to that conference. And the conference itself, we went with the extra sessions that come in advance, where you get the more personalized study and everything like that. So that was really, I want to say it cost my organization close to 10 grand for me and one other team member to go. So know what you're going for and know what companies are going to be there. That's why they list the sponsors, right? What level are those sponsors? Are you actually going to get to talk to somebody at the organization, or is it just going to be somebody at a booth handing out pens, or is it just going to be a particular company delivering a presentation or some sort of sales pitch? So research those things, talk to people who have been to the conferences before. LinkedIn is awesome for, people willing to share their experiences at conferences and things of that nature. And I know for one, I'm looking forward to getting back into the conference speaking space as well as attending. But I kind of had to take a little bit of a hiatus. And I really do miss you guys, all my tech conference people. And I'm still trying to get to KCDC. So hopefully they'll still have me. with a little bit of rust on, but I love talking and sharing with folks or whatever, so it'll be like riding a bike. In either case, I just want to remind you to think it all the way through. Start with something small, maybe something local, a meetup or something like that. It's a lot easier to learn what's important to you about a conference after you spent maybe $100 or $200 versus $1,000 or $2,000. And again, reach out to the community in your area if you don't have one. I'm sure you can find one virtually. You can hit me up in the comments if you want to talk about what conferences I've been to. You can check out my blog. For so many of the conferences that I've done, TechCon, Grace Hopper, even some of the virtual conferences like GitHub Universe, and I love Adobe Max. I don't know if that's technically a tech conference, but my creative side and my tech side are very, very close. They're great friends. So it's one of the reasons I love Adobe Max. But I would love to get to go to that in person. Adobe Max, that would be great. I haven't found anybody who's willing to pay my bill yet. That's part of the problem. Adobe Max is expensive. I love it though, and I'm glad that they make the virtual available for free. So that's another option you can consider as well. Is there a lot of conferences who offer a reduced rate or sometimes free in order to attend the virtual components? It's not quite the same as being in person, and honestly that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I've been to some conferences that were so crowded I couldn't get into the sessions that I wanted to, and I ended up watching them on demand later anyway. So again, so many things to take into consideration. I am putting together a framework to help you make some of these decisions about what to kind of do, because there's some other considerations that you could have as well, but I don't want this video to be a half an hour long. So I will catch up with you guys later. Click like, click subscribe, share, leave me a comment. Let me know what conferences you've been to. Are there ones you recommend? Are there ones that you recommend I stay away from? What conference do you want to see me at next? What conference are you going to be at next? Let's connect, and maybe I'll see you there. All right. Peace out. My name's Stacy. Cue the music.
My name is Stacy. 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 My name is Stacy.